it's no confusion, there'll be no pollution. I'm so thankful I've decided to change my ways.
Welcome to the Leaving Eden podcast. My name is Gabrielle Hacohen, and I am here with my co-host.
Hi, I'm Sadie Carpenter.
And we are here to talk about Sadie's life in the independent fundamental Baptist cult. But today, we're here to talk about cheese. Isn't that right?
We are here to talk about large quantities of cheese.
What did we do today? What did we do this morning?
So this morning, this has been a weird day for me. I got up and I watched Shrek because I had the homework that you gave me on the last episode. And I like to do the homework that you send me kind of in the hours right before we record, so I can have it fresh on my mind.
You're a procrastinator. That's what you're basically telling us. You're a procrastinator.
No, I'm saying that I plan.
No, you're just like me in college. Like,
how dare you imply such a thing? I plan to do it on purpose with the clock ticking right before we record.
Okay, well.
So anyway, I watched Shrek and then I get a text from you asking me if I would have any use for 6 pounds of mozzarella cheese.
Because I was on Reddit this morning. I was surfing Reddit this morning, and somebody in the Portland subreddit posted, I have a 6-pound block of mozzarella cheese. Does anybody want it? So naturally, I figured Sadie cooks Midwestern food. She might need 6 pounds of cheese for something.
So you texted me and you were like, do you want to go get this cheese? And I was like, sure, like tomorrow, because we got to record today.
No, I was like, no, we're doing it now. And
you're like, no, now. And I was like, okay. So we got in the car. We went over to a place in Portland.
If you know Portland, we live over in on the west side. I live in Northwest. She lives like slightly south in Southwest Portland. So
yeah, I'm in Southwest by like 500 feet.
We had to drive all the way up. It's like 7 miles to like this place up in, like basically almost like the border with Washington.
Up in suburbia.
Yeah, up in like suburbia strip mall area. And then we get this 6-pound block of cheese.
And then we walk in and we're just like, hey, we're here about the cheese.
And this, like, no one else is there because it's coronavirus, you know?
Right, we're still in Corona world to an extent.
Yeah, and this guy gives us 6 pounds of cheese and then we leave and then here we are. That was like an hour ago.
Yeah. So, by the way, dude who gave us cheese, if you end up listening to this, thanks for the cheese.
Yeah. She said she's going to make me lasagna. So
yeah, I'm going to make you, I have to look up like how to make kosher lasagna because I usually put sausage in it, but
yeah,
I'll look it up. I'll make you a lasagna.
Yeah, I would love that. But speaking of coronavirus, I think I've got some sort of idea now of what it is like to be in the IFB.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that thanks to coronavirus and the fears of infection, I've had to resort to contact-free dating.
So you've been doing contact-free dating for like 3 months?
Yeah.
Okay, and I did it for 6 years. You really do you really do understand my struggle now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm basically like, aside from the repressive rules about everything else, I'm basically IFB now. I'm
so sorry.
Yeah.
Hope you survive.
Yeah, I hope I do too. That sort of brings us to today's episode topic. We're here to talk about romance. We're here to talk about dating, and the often austere rules that the IFB implements on their members. And additionally, because Sadie never got a chance to experience a lot of the normal things that people dating went through when they were young, she's here to ask me about some of those things that I may or may not have experienced. So this is going to be a fun episode. My first question, though, for you, because we talked about this a little bit last episode, is what was dating like for you in high school?
So dating was pretty non-existent for me in high school. Well, I mean, so what I hear from other people is that high school dates are like going to the movies or going to get food after school, or things that you need a car for, and things that you would help if you were able to go to the movies. So normal high school dating things aren't things that we did anyway. But generally IFB congregations, and this is a place where they differ a little bit, but generally dating when you're still in high school isn't forbidden, but it's really highly discouraged until you get to college. So I wasn't allowed to formally date anybody until I went to college. I did really casually date somebody, and I'm going to call him Richard for the podcast, when I was in high school, but it wasn't super official, and it was also long distance.
And what you said, you mentioned this last episode that you were 16 and he was like 20 or something. He was 19, 20.
Yeah, I was 16 and I think he had just turned 20. It's a little hazy now that it's been so long, but I think I was 16 coming up on 17.
Like, and even if you went on dates with somebody or if you went out with somebody, it was always chaperoned.
Right. So so Richard and also my first serious boyfriend in college, both of those guys, we literally never touched, never held hands, never kissed, nothing. So instead of having, since I was really discouraged from having boyfriends at all, what we did almost universally to the IFB experience, what we did have was like camp and youth conference crushes.
So I did go to summer camp, so I do know what it's like to have a camp crush, because and that is a spicy meatball right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it like a big deal emotionally for you? Like it just felt very big.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you're at camp. I would go to camp for like 2 weeks in the summer, and it would be like, figure out who it's going to be. Yeah. And that's like, you got to do that within like the first 24 hours. And then you got to like plot out your steps, because there's like a very specific number of days that you've got.
Right. It's a high pressure.
And there's specific events. So you've got to make it count. Like,
yeah. And you definitely don't want to have figure out halfway through camp that you've got the wrong camp crush. That would suck. So I went on quite a few out of town trips every year. Usually 2 and sometimes even 3 major conferences at First Baptist of Hammond. And then I also went to Christian sleepaway camp in the summer for a week, which is, if you've ever seen the movie or the documentary Jesus Camp, have you seen that?
I have seen Jesus Camp.
It was exactly like that.
Wow. So you went to actual like Jesus Camp, I
went to real deal. It was a different campground, but almost exactly like that, just with IFB rules as well.
Wow. That movie was creepy.
So I'll tell you, Jesus Camp is the one documentary about cults or IFB or high pressure group behavior. I've seen a lot of documentaries about things in this realm. Jesus Camp is the only one I have not been able to make it through. That and like I watched Waco and I was fine. I've watched all of the 2020 coverage of First Baptist Church in Hammond. I've watched multiple documentaries about the specific group I grew up in and other cults and high pressure. I've watched it all. I've watched Leah Remini's wonderful Scientology series. Jesus Camp, that is the one I couldn't do.
So Jesus Camp is actually just like 100% real.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything that I saw, I think I saw about half of it before I gave up.
Okay, wow.
But it's that plus IFB rules. So that plus the long dresses and the no touching and the preaching that's more, being screamed at. Though the nice thing about camp, though, is that my parents either weren't with me, or if we were at one of those big conferences, they were busy. So that was I had a little bit more independence.
So you could go meet some boys.
So I could go meet some boys and sit across from each other at folding tables on folding chairs and eat camp food or conference food. Yeah, try to get I didn't have a phone.
You're making me sweat right now.
I know, it's spicy.
Not the food, of course. The food was never spicy.
No, the food was made with 6 pounds of mozzarella cheese. So I couldn't get a phone number because I didn't have a phone, and I couldn't get a Facebook or Instagram because I didn't have Facebook or Instagram. So I would get people's email addresses, and then you'd try to strike up a relationship.
Professional.
Yeah, quite.
You get you get your LinkedIn going.
So you try to strike up a relationship through email, which for some reason never worked particularly well for me.
Although Britney Spears did have that one song, Email My Heart.
I don't know that one.
Okay, well, you'll have to listen to it at some point.
I'm sure I'll get there.
You're like flirting hard with these boys at this conference crush, right? So you're emailing back and forth.
Yeah, talking about Jesus and asking asking all the important questions like, are you going to be a pastor or an assistant pastor?
Ooh, assistant pastor is like, that's like a no-go. You need a boy with ambition.
So I was looking actually, so at the time I wanted to be a teacher because that was like the smartest thing that women were allowed to do within the IFB. That was the most education that I'd be allowed to receive. That was kind of the highest, if you were a woman and you wanted to follow the IFB rules really closely, it would be discouraged for you to have a job outside the home unless it was a Christian school teacher. So I was angling for that like independence and that higher level of education. So honestly, I was looking for guys who either wanted to also be teachers or wanted to be Christian school Christian school principals, assistant pastors, because that would fit with kind of where I was going.
Well, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and also I had seen my mom be a pastor's wife, and my mom is beautiful and graceful and such a lovely human being, and she pulled it off really well. But I had seen everything that she had done behind the scenes and how hard that particular position is. No, I did not want that for myself.
It takes a toll on somebody.
So yeah, I was out flirting with all the assistant pastor boys though.
You find yourself a nice assistant pastor boy. He loves Jesus. And you think he might be sweet on you. So you guys go on a date. What date are you going on? What's going to happen?
So the first actually and only dates that I went on during high school, usually a date would be sitting with somebody in church at one of these conferences. And like it was really a thing. You'd go, you'd find them, you'd sit next to them. If you were cold, they'd give you their suit jacket, which was another big deal.
It's like letting your girlfriend wear your Letterman sweatshirt.
Yeah, it's the same concept, just translated into Baptist. And then if you were really, really wanting to get spicy, what you might do during that sermon?
You might touch legs.
No, you wouldn't touch. You might share a Bible though. Read the verses out of the same one. So my actual first sort of date in high school was the night before the infamous Jack Schaap polished shaft sermon.
So the polished shaft sermon is something that we're going to get into later.
In gory detail, yes. Yeah, and be prepared. It's a doozy.
And disturbing.
Oh, I felt so bad the first time I made you watch that.
I was so confused.
My first...
Sexually. But actually.
Well, I was too. I was there. Anyway, my first date was actually the night before that infamous sermon. So it was a youth conference, First Baptist Hammond. And on the last night, so I think on Thursday night, if the conference ended on Friday, on Thursday night, everybody would go out to the Hyles-Anderson College campus. And it was basically an advertisement for Hyles-Anderson to try to make the college look great and try to get you to come there. They'd have vendors with these snow cones and food. They'd feed everybody pizza. They'd have musical performances from like the college tour groups. And then they'd have fireworks at the end.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a really big deal. And I went to that kind of event with Richard. And then the next day, we got permission from my dad to sit together in the last session of the conference. And that last session of the conference is when the polished shaft sermon went down.
I can only imagine that following that sermon was a deeply erotic atmosphere.
It was really something. I'll talk a little bit more, I think, about my perceptions of it when we talk about Jack Schaap in detail. But I will say I was there for that. I was there. I was actually sitting with Richard's mother in another famously awkward Schaap sermon that I thought was worse than polished shaft personally. I've been pretty successful. I think I've gotten like 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 deep research things you've asked for this week.
That's like a C,
So, hey, I'm doing my best here. So if my work is a C, how about you take over? What was your first date like?
My first date. Okay. You know what? Okay. So my first date was when I was summer camp. And I think this was either 2008 or 2009. It was either 2008 or 2009 and it was 4th of July because I was at this summer camp. And we were there during the 4th of July and we went to see the fireworks. And so we sat on the grass together to watch the fireworks. And that was really sweet.
See, that does sound sweet. Sounds like fireworks are a great first ever date option.
Fireworks are a great first ever date option, you know?
Oh, wait. I was 16 too. So that would have been July of the year we were 16.
Yeah. So we were on our...
So that would have been like the same time.
The same time.
I just realized that because we're the same age. So that was the same July.
Wow.
That is in completely different worlds.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a neat coincidence.
And that was my first kiss there too, was that, which
at the
was
fireworks.
really sweet. Yeah. So when was your first kiss? Because I know they didn't let you guys touch.
So my first kiss was I was a student at Hyles Anderson at the time, believe it or not.
Wow, man, you must have been like breaking all the rules.
It was very sneaky. Yeah. At that point, it was just like days before I left Hyles Anderson for the last time.
Right at the end of 2013.
Right in May of 2013. So I was like almost done. I already knew I was leaving. I already knew I wasn't coming back. So
if they kicked you out, there was nothing that...
Right. At that point, I was so past caring. I was just so over it. So I had just started dating somebody and we knew that it was going to be long distance for a while. We knew that it was a huge personal life disaster in general. So like we knew it was like a time sensitive kind of situation. So we had a sneaky kiss. I don't regret doing that. And like breaking the rules was so fun.
If it's that forbidden, that sounds like the hottest thing on like...
It was a real mind trip. It was a real, like, not to over dramatize, but it was an eye-opening experience for me because it was, I can directly break the rules and lightning didn't fall from the sky. It was a real mind-changing, kind of world-changing, point of view shifting experience.
The Lord didn't smite you.
I did not get smitten by the Lord. And I don't regret, like, I certainly don't regret kissing that person. I don't regret breaking the rules. I wish it could have been different. Like, I wish it could have been a less high pressure environment. I feel like that is just so much pressure to put on somebody. It's like, here's your first kiss. By the way, this is a new person you just got in a relationship with. You've never kissed anybody before. They've never kissed anybody before. After this, you're not going to be able to see each other for who knows how long. And also, you're breaking the rules of the college that you've been brought up to follow your entire life. And if you get caught, you're going to get expelled. It was too much. Like, that wasn't what I wanted for my first kiss. You know, what I would have rather had was something a lot less pressure.
So because like you guys couldn't dance, you guys didn't have a prom in high school, of course.
We didn't. And prom was like the number one thing I was obsessed with when I got the internet.
Really?
I remember being able to use a computer on my own with the internet for the first time when I was maybe 15 or 16. I might have been 15.
And so you were just living vicariously through
Right. And my internet access was like pretty monitored, so I couldn't have gotten onto anything extreme, but either nobody noticed that I was reading a lot of like fashion and style, like Teen Vogue and stuff. Either nobody noticed that I was reading that, or nobody cared and they just decided to let it slide. The thing I wanted to read about more than anything else was prom. I spent hours shopping for prom dresses, trying to imagine like what I would wear if I had a chance to go.
You know, it's like a little bit of a princess moment, you know?
It's like a Cinderella. Yeah, it is. And that was what I was obsessed with. And I didn't care so much about like having a prom date, my focus was like, I want a prom dress.
Of course, because who doesn't want to dress up nice and then like have photos taken of them and then just go out and have a great time dancing and partying,
Yeah, because like I'm not like a girly person in day-to-day life, but I am a person like I really, really like getting super dressed up, and I just have a huge soft spot for giant poofy ball gowns.
Of course. It's fun.
So I actually really just love people telling me about their prom. So can I just ask you a few questions about yours?
Absolutely.
So when you went to prom, were promposals a thing?
Some people made a big deal out of it. I didn't hear people calling it a promposal. Like at this time, this was like 2011, right? So I graduated high school in 2011. So my prom was in May of 2011. At this time, smartphones weren't as ubiquitous. Like a lot of people had them, but not everyone did. And Instagram wasn't invented yet. Most people weren't on Twitter. And so like if something was going to happen, it was going to happen on Facebook. So if like something was going to go viral, it would get shared a bunch of times on Facebook. But this was also when Facebook felt a bit more private. So like people making the big deal about promposals to go viral on social media wasn't really a thing. However, I remember that there was like a couple times, there was one kid who was in like my civics class. He wrote on like the board before class to ask like a specific girl from the class to go with him. And she said no. And that was really embarrassing.
Oh, she turned him down in front of the whole class.
Yeah. And you know what? You are taking a big swing when you go public. Like when you do it in public, that's a big swing. If you do a big swing and then like you get turned down, you either look like a total idiot or she kind of looks mean. And that's not really a good look for anybody.
See, that's exactly what I was saying. High pressure situations, not as fun as you think.
Yeah, the girl that I went with I was on the mock trial team with her. See, I was on the mock trial team because I was a big nerd. I
am so not surprised to find out that you were on the mock trial team.
So this girl, I'm going to call her Shayna. Her dad was Israeli and she was on the mock trial team with me. And when it came time for like prom season, which, second semester of senior year, our team had basically, I think this was like late February, early March. Our team had just come second place in state, which was like a big deal. So emotions were flying pretty high. We had like a wrap up / debrief meeting after the competition. And that was when I was like, okay, I finally got the nerve to ask Shane to go to the prom with me. I had a little bit of something going for me because I was a senior. And I think she was either a sophomore or a junior. Either way, she wasn't a senior. She was either 1 or 2 years in school younger than me. And the prom was seniors only. So I figured, you know what? She'd probably say yes because she wasn't going to go anyway. So she might as well go with me. I went and I talked with my friend. I'm going to call her Elaine.
Wait a second. Is that any way inspired by the Seinfeld character?
Her hair looks a lot like Elaine's hair on Seinfeld. And
okay.
Yeah, so we went to the QFC. QFC is like a grocery store. We went to the QFC after school, and Elaine helped me pick out some flowers, and I think they were orange tulips, and I can't remember. And so I put them in my backpack. I wrapped a towel around the stem of them and put them in my backpack, and like went to this meeting that was after school. And so towards the end, I like sneak outside of the classroom where this meeting is. I'm out there with the flowers and I send a text message to a friend who was inside. And I'm like, oh, could you send Shayna outside? And so she came outside and she was like all confused. And she's like, why are they telling me to go outside the classroom? So I'm out there. I give her the flowers and ask if she'll go to the prom with me. And she said yes. And then we hugged and it was really sweet.
That sounds like super, super adorable.
Yeah, because, it was all in private. But like some people knew about it and they're like, oh, that'll be sweet. Yeah.
Okay. Like I do want to go back to prom though, to talk about like my favorite part of it. How big of a deal was it choosing the clothes for prom? Like, did you match?
No, we didn't match because I felt like matching would have been too, we would have looked too chopped. I don't know. Like, I feel like matching would have been good if you were like a couple and we weren't like,
yeah, you weren't like dating or whatever.
So she went with her friends to pick a dress, but also like I didn't get to see the dress until the day of. Right. So it was almost like going to shopping for a wedding dress. So because I was performing in singing groups in high school. I was all in choir and stuff, doing music.
Yeah.
And so I had been fitted for a tux before, but I wasn't going to, I wasn't going to wear the same tux that I wore, for performing because, I'd worn that tux roughly like 100 times over 2 years. And so it was not in any condition to be a prom tux. Like, I don't know, like I rarely washed that thing. That thing was disgusting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like imagine like 2 years of teenage boy, like stank.
Oh my goodness.
My mom took me to the Mr. Formal to rent a tux. And the tux was black, but it had a gray vest and a gray bow tie. Most importantly, I wore my Rush 2112 t-shirt under my tuxedo shirt. So like,
that's great.
We get to, because we're all meeting up because we've got a limo, like me and her, and I think 6 or so of our other friends, or 7 or 8 or so of our other friends. We were meeting up at one of our friends' house, and then we all got a limo together, and then we were gonna all go together. And so like I get there. I think she was the last to arrive. No, I know she was the last to arrive. She comes in and like she has this wine-colored dress, and I am so nervous, but she looked like she looked gorgeous. Like in my 18-year-old mind, I was like, she is like the most beautiful thing in the entire world. And that was really incredible. That was just a fun experience.
It sounds like a movie, dude.
You know what? It didn't feel like a movie. I did make spaghetti sauce though. We had like a potluck dinner at my friend's house.
So you all meet up at your friend's house.
Yeah, we all met up at my friend's house.
You get in a limo.
And we get in the limo, and then we drive around town a bit, and then we go to the dance. And the dance is like upstairs in like one of these warehouse buildings. I think it was somewhere in Northwest Portland.
Oh, really? They didn't have it like in the school gym, like in the movies.
No. It was like at an actual venue.
Did you go to public school?
Yeah, I went to.
So like the school paid for having an outside venue.
Yeah, but we had to buy tickets.
Oh, okay.
So we had to buy tickets, and I think the tickets were like $22 each. I don't remember how much the limo cost.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because by the time my brother went to prom, I remember his tickets being expensive. Like, so my youngest brother is 4 years younger than us. We got out when he was about 16, so he got to do the last couple years at a Christian high school, but not IFB in any way. But so you didn't have to pay because he was talking about tickets being like $75 or something.
No, they weren't that much. They were like $22, I want to say.
Maybe it's because there were more students going that the price per head wasn't so high.
Yeah, that's possible.
I don't know why this matters to me, except for the fact that I'm just fascinated by prom.
Yeah.
So you get there, and did your prom have a theme?
Yes, it did. I think it was A Night to Remember. So it was like Titanic themed. And I think that I remember that we slow danced to My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion, which is one of the greatest songs ever. I
can get with that. So other than My Heart Will Go On, what else was on the DJ list?
Well, it was 2011. So they played Dynamite by Tayo Cruz. I remember that song specifically.
I heard that song a lot.
There was also like a lot of Lady Gaga, because after all, it was 2011. And that was also like the year after Michael Jackson had died, or like less than 2 years after Michael Jackson had died. So the playlist was very MJ heavy. And I got to like very poorly moonwalk, and I don't think that really impressed anybody, but I tried and I wasn't very good at it. So
was that moonwalk in any way inspired by like the movie trope of somebody dumping indiscriminate amounts of alcohol in the punch? Was that a thing?
No, because I think that if you were cool, you got to drink beforehand. And yeah, because I think we had wine with dinner. And then afterwards, we all went to my friend, I'm going to call her Samantha. We went to my friend Samantha's house, and we all stayed there overnight afterwards, and we had champagne there, which was...
See, that sounds like so moderate, because what I've seen portrayed in movies, like I'm specifically thinking about, I watched the Hulu series 11/22/63.
I haven't seen that.
it's okay. The book is way better. I'll loan you the book. But the high school prom in that series, some boys just come by with flasks and they just pour. It's like one dude has gin and one dude has vodka and one dude has brandy, and they don't think about how this is going to mix. They just dump all of whatever they have in the punch.
That sounds vile. But that sounds like some stuff we would have drank in high school, though. We had zero taste.
Yeah, it also sounds like a high schooler's idea of a good idea. It also sounds like something that would really mess you up faster than you think it will if you're a kid and you're not used to drinking.
People were maybe a bit more conscientious than that. And also, so, like, they low-key searched us on the way in to be like, oh, do you have alcohol on you? And we're like, no. I think I might have gotten patted down, but I don't think so. But I know that girls probably stored booze in their boobs in their dress. So
yeah, or in the little purse or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know about that. I can't remember that specifically. I can't remember if they searched us at all. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like, so it sounds like to me it was almost like the real life version of what they show in movies. Like, it wasn't the same, but it was like the good real life version of that.
I really enjoyed myself. I had a good time. And I think most or all of my friends did too.
Well, that sounds really sweet. What we had, so I didn't have that in high school. What I had in college that was similar to prom is called the Valentine Banquet.
The Valentine Banquet. That sounds fun.
I'm going to tell you about it like in just a second. But I think we are going to talk a little bit about college dating first.
What was dating for you like in college?
We read some of the dating rules for Hyles-Anderson College earlier in the podcast, yeah. And there were, in addition to those rules, lots of people have probably heard of the book I Kissed Dating Goodbye.
I haven't heard of this book, but
really,
please tell me about it.
So it is a book. It was written by a guy who was 21 at the time. Josh Harris is his name.
Wait, a 21-year-old wrote a book on dating? Already, that's a red flag, right?
Well, he wasn't married. He also was like not engaged, not married, and had very little personal experience either.
This sounds like an incel's guide to women. Like, it's
not that far off from that concept. So Josh Harris was he's actually from Portland. And I think he still lives in the area. I really want to talk to him.
Is he still fundamentalist?
No, and that's where this becomes like an interesting story. So I Kissed Dating Goodbye is a courtship manual. And it talks about basically his premise at the time that he wrote this when he was 21 was that dating is just practicing heartbreak. So you date and then you break up and your heart's broken, and you date and then you break up and then your heart's broken. So his premise at the time he wrote the book was that dating multiple people it's like practicing divorce. So when you do get married, you're going to do what you've practiced. You're going to be happy for a while and then you're going to break up.
That doesn't make any sense, but okay.
Well, that's what he thought was the smartest thing. Like having been raised, evangelical and being 21, 21-year-old people are notorious, yes, for thinking they know everything and not having a great grasp on reality. So he wrote this book and it revived the courtship movement in the United States.
Literally this. So when did he write this book? When did this come out?
Oh, you know what? I don't know. Let me check so I don't get it wrong. So it was published in January of 1997. And this book influenced, there were people doing courtship in the United States before this book came out, but this made it really popular. And this book also was in a large part responsible for the popularity of purity rings when I was in high school, when I was in college.
I've heard of purity rings.
I had one. It was a silver. My parents got it for me. It wasn't a big like ceremonial thing or anything. My parents are pretty chill. It wasn't a big like ceremony. They didn't make me sign a pledge or anything, but they did get me a purity ring when I was 15 or 16. It was a silver ring with a purple stone, an amethyst stone in the shape of a heart.
That sounds pretty.
I thought it was really pretty. I still have it. I wore it every day from from when I got it until I was probably around the time I left Hyles Anderson.
What finger did it go on?
I wore it on the wedding finger, but on my right hand. Lots of people that wear purity rings wear it on the third finger of their left hand, where their wedding ring will eventually go. The doctrine behind that gets a little fuzzy. In practice, what it boils down to is the idea that you are already married to your future spouse before even you meet them or before you get married to them. So the idea is that once you're married, that person has some degree of ownership over your body. And it's not particularly sexist. It's actually both ways. It's, the husband owns part of the wife and the wife owns part of the husband. So the idea is that anything you do before you're married is still cheating on your future spouse who you haven't met yet.
So that's very Calvinist predestination.
Yes, from people who are anti-Calvinist, it is rather Calvinistic. Yeah. So the dating manual, however, that I was a lot more familiar with was by Jack Schaap again.
The man who really enjoys polishing his shaft.
I'm sure he does now.
He's in jail.
Specifically, he's in jail for a violation of the Mann Act. And he looks like he's going to be in jail for quite a while longer. We will eventually tell you why this is a source of personal joy for me. Anyway, polished shaft man, sex criminal Jack Schaap, wrote a book called Dating with a Purpose. And everybody read it. I read it probably 10 times as a teenager, early college student. Man, all I wanted to do when I was a teenager, all I wanted to do was go to Hyles Anderson, do Hyles Anderson approved dating, not hold hands, not kiss, just meet a boy and get married. That was like the dream, man. So
reading this book is like a fantasy for you.
Right. Like I would read this over fiction. And that's, I told you I did find a copy of Dating with a Purpose on Amazon, and it was really inexpensive. So I went ahead and bought it, which I'm just thrilled to have that for archival purposes.
So what sort of stuff is in it?
Well, it's not here, and I want you to know this is what I can remember off the top of my head.
At some point, we'll go into greater detail.
We'll do a dramatic reading. So Dating with a Purpose, otherwise known as Dating with a Porpoise, because that's just what we called it. We thought it was funny. I don't know.
You make puns because you can't make dirty jokes.
Yes, very much. So here's some advice from Dating with a Purpose. Purpose. So
force of habit.
Yes. So number one is keep your weight down to attract a man.
From what you've told me, the sin of lust is one that is like lambasted. Like,
yeah,
lusting after somebody is highly, highly, highly frowned upon. Like, unless you're literally on your wedding day. And even if it's like on your wedding day, but like you haven't had the blessing yet, you haven't said I do yet, lusting after somebody is still a sin.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be that, like, if you're pursuing a woman with the intention of marrying her, then under no circumstances should it be done from the point of view of sexual attraction?
Yeah, that's what's preached.
Then how does telling women to keep their weight down to attract a man make any sense? Or is this just one of those situations where they're like, yeah, well, men are inherently sinful and it's women's job to have to deal with that?
That's it exactly. It's the idea of, like, in a perfect world or in a sinless world, none attraction wouldn't matter in any of this, or lust wouldn't factor in. But because men are completely helpless at the hands of their instincts and their visual cues that control men, it's like men are controlled by that, and it's not their fault in the IFB world. So women who are not controlled visually, it is women's job to manage and lead men into good behavior.
Well, that's sexist.
Yeah, so is the next piece of advice, which is don't wear colored stockings.
Why? Are colored stockings not attractive?
It was an analogy to try to say don't dress with the trends. Scott mentions a friend of his who almost broke up with his future wife because she was the first person in her friend group to jump on the trend of wearing like bright colored hose.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that's an analogy that's in the book. I can't prove whether it's, actually happened or not.
That strange. That's a weirdly high bar, and also just like a bizarre preference and a really draconian punishment.
So I think what you would want to understand is that a lot of these are Schaap's personal preferences, because by the time he wrote this book, he was in line to become the next pastor of First Baptist Church. Hyles still was the pastor at the time, but he knew that he was being picked. He knew that he was going to be next in line. So he tells you that, wear this and don't wear this. And he's enforcing his own preferences. I mean, that's the common theory. Obviously, there's no way to prove what's going on in someone's heart. But the common theory is that he chooses to tell people what to wear in a way that's going to please him and make him, feel good, or make him like what he sees walking around the halls of the college. And again, there's no way to prove that, but it's certainly what it looks like to me and to every other person who went to college there. So the other piece of clothing advice we get is to wear shoulder pads.
So what is with this obsession with shoulder pads? Like,
I don't know.
We touched on this last time, and this just seems like such a bizarre fashion trend to just like glom onto and be like, yes, you need to wear if you're a woman, you need to wear shoulder pads. Like,
so this is complete speculation, but I'll tell you why I think it's mentioned. So Jack Schaap's now ex-wife, Cindy, is a very petite lady. She's maybe, if I had to guess, she's 5'2", maybe a dress size 4, 6. She's very small, very petite naturally. Those Christian womanhood notes that I read you last time, that you had the same shoulder pad discussion about, that class would have been taught by Cindy Schaap. And the material for that class would have been directly approved by her husband, Jack Schaap. And this book was written by Jack Schaap. So it's all going back to him. And I can tell you for sure, we always saw Mrs. Schaap in shoulder pads and belts. So she had a really tiny waist. And I think she was, I don't want to say proud or vain, but she definitely knew how to dress for it. That was her look. And that was, I assume, what Schaap found attractive. So he encouraged her to play it up. She had almost like a 40s movie star kind of, large shoulder pads, large shiny belt, like a very thick 4-inch kind of belt around her waist. That was her signature look. Apparently that's what he thought was attractive. And I think he encouraged her to push that look on herself and to push it on other people. And that he also pushed it in his book as well. The other main piece of advice in Dating with a Porpoise is the idea that there are 4 stages of dating. So you've got like the first date, and then you've got the I like you phase, and then you've got the I love you phase, and then you get engaged. So the book broke down like what activities are and aren't important, or are and aren't appropriate in each one of those different stages. And it wrote a direct plan for how to date and fall in love, the IFB way. So it became this thing where you followed the plan, you fell in love, you got married, you just followed this book.
You don't even have to think about it.
No, not at all. You just follow it. It's all written out for you. Date ideas, what pet names are appropriate at what stages, what topics of conversation are appropriate at what stages. It's all in there. So you just kind of follow the plan. The big cultural impact this had at Hyles-Anderson was the whole I like you stage. So when you became officially boyfriend and girlfriend, you were not allowed to tell the person that you loved them, because you should really only say that you love somebody as like a precursor to engagement. And I personally knew quite a few people at Hyles-Anderson who chose not to do the I love you stage. They didn't say they loved the other person until they were ready to propose. So they would say, oh, I love you. Will you marry me? And that would be at the same time. So with the I like you thing, you're allowed to say I like you, but you aren't allowed to say I love you. So at Hyles-Anderson, you will hear a ridiculous number of people hanging up the phone with, okay, yeah, babe. All right, I'll see you at church tonight. I like you. Bye. because you can't say I love you. So you get real creative with I like you. And it really, man, it gets gross after a while, let me tell you.
That's like, that has it has a weird like infantilizing effect. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a weird like, I don't like that at all. Oh man.
I'm sorry.
But like, so at the point when you're getting engaged, how much time have you actually spent alone with this person?
So that depends on how you define alone. If you're following the rules 100%, you have never been out of eyesight of other people together. So you might have been able to like take a walk in a park or something, but there's a chaperone or another couple 20 feet behind you. So you can have like a private conversation, but you can't be alone in a car. You've never been alone in a room with no one else in there. You've never touched or kissed. And the only private conversations you've had on the phone in a public place with other people nearby, but not overhearing or like whispering in a crowded room. So you know a lot about that person in some ways because all you can do is talk, and you talk for hours and hours and hours and hours. But you know almost nothing about their private life other than what they've told you. Like, it's hard to say you really know somebody deeply or intimately if you've never been there when they were brushing their teeth.
Like, aside from the genuine possibility that they could be mean or abusive, they could never shower. They could start every morning with a warm glass of Mountain Moo.
What the heck is that?
Mountain Moo is a drink that is equal parts Mountain Dew and milk.
What?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. What?
I knew a guy in college.
That's not a real thing.
I knew a guy in college who would drink Mountain Moo. It was like
I reject. And he
would drink it all the time. And he had me drink it once, and I'm just like, I had like one sip, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is pretty good. And then I tried to drink more, and I'm like, okay, this is the worst thing I've ever had in my entire life.
No, I reject the idea that has ever been done in the world.
It has absolutely been done, and
that cannot be real. I reject your reality and substitute my own. I'm going back to the IFB now that I heard about that. That's what you're going to hell for.
I didn't invent it.
You drank it. You're culpable. The sin is on you now.
Good thing my people don't believe in hell.
Oh my gosh. That's so gross.
Legitimately, like, they could be the type of person who sleeps in jeans. You just don't know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like, so I've known you for like a short time, and you just knocked me out of my chair with whatever grossness that was. But like, imagine if that was somebody that you were engaged to.
You get married, you say "I do," and then you go off to your new home together.
And they pull the milk and Mountain Dew out of the refrigerator. But no, that's a little bit of a.
That's a great way to mess with somebody. If you're ever like going out with if you ever want to see how much somebody likes you.
You know, actually, I have both of those things in my refrigerator. I should go see what my husband's up to.
No, like, it's just like how, if I'm ever talking to a girl, if I'm ever on a date or something, I'll tell like a knock joke and see if she laughs at it. If she laughs at it, she likes me, because knock jokes are terrible.
You exposed me to this knowledge. Is this payback for making you watch the Polished Shaft video? Is that what this is?
Sure, let's call it that.
Okay. So I assume that dating was a little bit different in college for you than it was for me. Can we change the subject from that, please?
Yes. Okay. So
thank you.
It's my freshman year. Okay. It's August of 2011, and I get to campus, and we have co-ed dorms, right?
Would you maybe go in your dorm room and like one room is all boys and the other room is all girls, but they're all on the same dorm floor?
Yeah. So that's what it would be. So you'd have like two people living in the same room, but they wouldn't mix genders.
You only had two people in a dorm room?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so unfair.
They weren't big, but they were, some rooms they had triples, but the triples were bigger. Yeah.
I lived with I had just one roommate sometimes, but most of my dorm rooms were 3 or 4 people.
That's a lot.
They were tiny.
Of course, in this situation, being an 18-year-old boy, I wasn't trying to date anybody seriously. So
you weren't looking for a wife to like be your wife when you go out to be a pastor.
No, at this point, I was still a music major, and I was like, "I'll write a song for you, baby," and that's my move. But I think second semester of freshman year is when I actually started like actually dating somebody, and that only lasted for a couple of months. But yeah, and then but my junior year is when things really get wild, because junior year rolls around and Tinder has been invented and everybody has it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I don't know if you're listening to this now in like 2020 and you didn't get on dating apps in 2006 until like 2016. Tinder in 2013 and like 2014 on a college campus was something else. Like it was the wild, wild west. The thing was that like, because everybody had it. So you could walk into any party. Like you could walk into any party and know who was into you and who wasn't, because like, you know, it was a small town and you've seen everybody on there and you tried to, and this was before like the algorithms were like, okay, we're going to move some people up and show them to everybody and move some people down and show them to nobody. You could walk into any party and know who was into you and who wasn't. So
that's the story of being an early adopter with Tinder.
Yes. And now, like, of course, like they tried to make it into like an actual like dating app now. And it's not the same as it, like before it was just like, okay, let's go, you know.
It just kind of struck me like that's really odd, because, you know, we were talking about our first dates, quote unquote, happened like probably the same month, most likely. And they're both watching fireworks, and like how that is so similar. And then dating in college, it is like I'm from a different planet.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't think our experiences could possibly be any more different. It just kind of blew my mind, because 2 years before college, we were having almost the same experience. Obviously, I didn't have any dating apps at college. All we really had was word of mouth, and college staff would try to set up, you know, good connections. So, you know, you'd have, well, especially like married college staff members.
They're trying to be like Cher and Clueless.
They're exactly trying to be like that. So hypothetically, you know, there are several staff couples at Hyles-Anderson. So the husband teaches Bible and the wife teaches cooking, or the husband teaches English and the wife runs the business office, or whatever. But no, so staff members will, you know, the husband will meet a guy in his Bible class and he'll tell his wife, and the wife will meet a girl who is at the post office or whatever. And then the husband and the wife will set them up on a date. So we had that, no dating apps. No, I think the only way to describe it is just highly ritualized. Trying to explain it, I feel like I sound like an anthropologist trying to describe a cultural ritual that you've never heard about before. It does follow dating with a purpose, like practically to the letter. Between that and the rules in the handbook, there's very little wiggle room anyway. So there are, the big deal things are college dating activities. So they'll provide at least 4 activities a year. They are heavily promoted in chapel. You're highly encouraged to find a date to these things, even to the point where, so you usually have a harvest festival of some kind, Christmas lights in December, the Valentine banquet in February, and then generally there'll be one more thing towards the end of the school year that's a college-sponsored dating activity. It's to the point where, I remember Jack Schaap used to do this. He'd get in the pulpit and he'd say, all right, all men who don't have a date to Christmas lights yet, stand up. So, you know, all the guys who didn't have a date to Christmas lights would stand up. And then he'd say, all ladies who don't have a date to Christmas lights, stand up. And then he would pair them off, like from the pulpit in front of everybody, to set up where everybody had a date for this dating activity.
What if you get paired up with somebody who you don't really like that much?
I mean, I don't know. So my freshman year, I was exempted from going on that sort of thing because of the particular scholarship thing that I did. I'll talk about that a different time. But by my sophomore year, I had a boyfriend. So I was always exempted from it. I don't really know what would have happened if you got sent with somebody you hated.
That's embarrassing.
It is super embarrassing. It's humiliating. And that is a very Jack Schaap thing to do, because he's reinforcing these people's connections to him by tying personal humiliation in front of the student body to the idea of dating. So he's reinforcing his connection and his control over people.
That's all kinds of gross.
So, I mean, it is, but the activities were actually pretty fun. So I went on Christmas lights. I went to Christmas lights. I went to downtown Chicago, and Christmas lights is like somewhat less chaperoned, which is cool. So there's a chaperone on every bus that takes you down there, of course. So you don't have to go though. Like you don't have to have a college staff member with you on your date. As long as there are at least 2 couples together, you can kind of go off and do your own thing. So that was a very big deal to go on Christmas lights.
Could you guys be like, okay, we're going to make a pact where like, I'll let you guys go off and like do your own thing, and you guys let us go off and do your own thing, and like tell no one?
Oh, I'm absolutely sure that many people did that. At the time, I was still on the following rules side of things. So it wasn't me, but I'm 1,000% sure that some people did that. The other like really big activity that is similar to prom was the Valentine banquet. So for Valentine banquet, everybody would wear formal dresses and tuxes or suits, and we'd go to the college dining hall, and the college dining hall would serve us on china instead of on paper plates or plastic or whatever. And you'd have a quote unquote fancy meal at the dining hall. And I'm sorry, but it was always just terrible. The one I remember was baked chicken and vegetables and mashed potatoes and like chocolate cake.
That sounds pretty good.
It would be good if it was cooked well, but everything was just not right. And then we would all walk to the church or to the campus auditorium where we have chapel, and they'd put on a Baptist written, Baptist approved musical for us. So you got to do dinner and a show in fancy dresses, and Valentine banquet was a really big deal. So I finally got to do 1% of my prom fantasy. I did get some pretty dresses.
And that's all you really want is the pictures.
Yeah, the pictures and the dresses. I have actually a scandalous story from my freshman year.
Please tell it.
So my freshman year, I actually went to the Valentine's banquet twice with 2 different dates, which made a really, really big splash at the college.
That's like from an episode of like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or something.
It actually was really great. So my first boyfriend, who I talked about earlier, we had been talking, we had been flirting, but there was no activity. Like he hadn't, asked me out or anything. And it wasn't like I could ask him out because, duh, I'm a girl. Boys are supposed to ask you out. He was a little shy at the time. He's just really sweet. But he wasn't ready to really ask me out, and I really, really wanted to go to the Valentine banquet. This other friend of mine had his girlfriend was in a different state. They were kind of like on again, off again, but they knew they were going to give it another try, but she wasn't there. She was in another state. So he and I decided we were going to go to the Valentine banquet together, and just as friends, just have a good time. And that way we wouldn't get picked on from the pulpit by Jack Schaap about not going with a date. So Morton had asked me to go to the banquet with him just as friends. And they played it for 2 nights so that if you had to work one of the 2 nights or something, you could still go to the banquet with your date, because it was a really, really, really big deal to go to the Valentine banquet.
And so you went on 2 nights with 2 different guys.
Well, so Morton had asked me to go with him on Friday, and we were going to do that. Fun, whatever, no big deal. He had already bought the tickets. We were already all set up. Super happy to not have a date, just go with friends. And then the other guy finally got off his ass and asked me to go to the banquet. So I went with one guy on Friday, one guy on Saturday, caused a lot of gossip, felt pretty cool. And that was the biggest wave that I would cause at the college until the next spring when I caused a bigger one. That one was more like, yeah, mad respect than being condemned for it. I think most people just thought it was funny that I pulled it off.
When you get in this situation, though, where dating is just so highly ritualized, does it affect how you actually feel attraction for somebody? I know we talked last time about having better standing in the eyes of the administration also helped your dating prospects. What was it about somebody that was going to make them more eligible for you?
So I think, like I said earlier, you were primarily looking for someone who had the same life goals as you. If you were called to be a missionary, you first and foremost had to find someone who was also called to be a missionary. That was not negotiable. So if you already have said and feel like God's calling you to be a missionary, too bad, so sad. You can't date somebody who wants to be a pastor in the United States.
So that's thinning the herd a bit.
So you got that. And then you've got to find somebody who is, quote unquote, on fire for God. So somebody who's enthusiastic about soul winning, somebody who is enthusiastic about doing God's will, somebody who always goes down and prays at the altar during the invitation. If you're not enthusiastic about those things, or if you have really bad soul winning numbers, or if you don't bring a lot of people to church, that could very quickly make you undateable to the higher class of students who were charismatic and good at those things.
You know what that reminds me of, though? This reminds me of what is it? In China, they have like a social credit score or something.
It is. It is exactly like that. Class as a, internal, just within Hyles-Anderson, there was a very distinct, very defined class system. And you were to date within your class. And it was very, very unusual for somebody to date somebody outside of that social class that they were in.
So how many classes were there? It was like the top is like your firebrand preacher boys, right?
Yeah. So if you have that, and then you have a second group, which is where I would have fallen most of the time at Hyles-Anderson, where you are, you're reasonably following along with everything. You're trying, you're doing a pretty good job of projecting your Christian works to other people. You just don't care enough to go to that level. Or you're like me, like I was pretty sold out. Sold out is the phrase that they use to describe being 100% in. So I was in that space my freshman year, but I didn't fall in line with the IFB ideas of beauty or fashion.
You didn't wear shoulder pads.
I didn't. I also wasn't thin enough. Beauty is a cultural thing. The things that are valued as being very physically beautiful at Hyles-Anderson are not the same as they are in other places, and I was not considered pretty.
That's got to weigh on you.
I don't know. I don't remember it bothering me that badly because I was still in the mindset of God is going to send me the perfect person.
Huh. Okay.
So I wasn't too in my head about it. It was just a fact of life for me. It gets me down, it would make me sad sometimes, just like anybody else. But I don't think I felt any less pretty then. I don't think I struggled with it any more then than I do now. Just having my bad days of, I just don't feel pretty today. I think it didn't really upset me. But anyway, that kind of put me in a second class of students who were almost primo, but not quite primo. Also, if my dad had a bigger church or been more well-known, that could have bumped me up to that top class. You've got a third class of people who are seen as less intelligent. Sometimes these are people who just did not get a very good education and don't do well in classes. People who are lazy but not rebellious would fall in that category. People who just don't mesh well with the rules at Hyles-Anderson and struggle to keep up with the rules. Yeah, and then you've got the rebellious kids that nobody would want to date except for other rebellious kids. That's a very hard line. I went into Hyles-Anderson hovering between the first and the second classes and kind of moving around. And then my last semester, I all of a sudden dropped to the bottom. So that was a big thing.
And so you were only able to date the other kids in the rebellious classes. Right.
Well, that's the thing. My fall from grace was caused by dating somebody who was also on their way falling from down on the fall from grace. So it was kind of a joint effort. As far as, dating at Hyles-Anderson, you're looking for somebody with the same life goals. You're looking for somebody in the same social class. You're looking for somebody who's a good soul winner. And attraction is way down the list of things that you consider or things that you're supposed to want or consider. You're told over and over, the point of dating is to get married, and the fewer people you date before you find the one, the better. Yeah, attraction's a thing, but you're taught to kind of ignore it or to think of it last. In my own experience, I was always taught that men are visual creatures and women feel attracted or feel attraction when they are provided for and given security. Well, it's the old 50s saying, men are, what is it? Women are a crock pot, men are a microwave.
I've never heard of that, but okay.
The idea is a man can be turned on very quickly by visual things or physical attraction, just boom, like a microwave heats stuff up really fast. And women are more like a crockpot. Like it takes security and being provided for and being treated right over a long period of time for women to feel attraction. So that's what I was taught. And I was taught that a lot of times women don't feel attraction or don't feel much behind, oh yeah, that guy's good looking, until they're married and have a husband who provides for them. And then God allows them to feel attraction to their husband so they can have a physical relationship. So that's kind of what I expected. I knew that I thought some of the boys were handsome, but I didn't connect that to like, oh, I'm experiencing sexual attraction for that tall blonde guy over there. I didn't know that was what it was because I had never been made aware that I was capable of feeling sexual attraction. So I thought like, oh, that's just how I feel when somebody is pretty. So the to compound it all, I'm sorry, did you have a question?
No, keep going. That's interesting.
So to like compound this all and make it even more complicated, a few years down the line, I found out like, oh, I am capable of feeling visual and physical attraction to people. So I found that out because it dawned on me. And then directly on the heels of that giant revelation, I immediately realized that all the times that I've been, staring at girls across the room and thinking, because I didn't know I could feel attraction. So in my brain, it's, oh, she's so pretty. I wish I could just be just like her. And I didn't know that was attraction, but all of a sudden I realized that, I can feel attracted, and I'm attracted to boys, and I'm attracted to girls. Oh my goodness.
Sinful.
Just all of that just dumped on me within the course of a couple months. It was a mind blower, let me tell you.
I'm sure it was. So when it comes to rules, so say you found this perfect person that meets all your right social class, wants the same things as you, but you can't touch, you can't be alone together. How do you form a real bond of intimacy with this person, with somebody?
Well, you talk a lot and you can't touch, but there's always optical intercourse, otherwise known as making eye babies.
What is optical intercourse?
So at Hyles-Anderson specifically.
I'm not sure I want to know that. This sounds horrible.
It's not that bad. You'll be okay, I promise. So there's a room just off the lobby, and it's especially for dating couples. It's always chaperoned. It's called the dating lobby. And it looks like the lobby of a hotel building, maybe. So it's like couches and love seats and little stuffed chairs and some chairs and tables set in little clumps all together throughout the room. The rule book would call it the dating lobby, but people actually call it the drool pool. It's called the drool pool because on any given evening, you can walk through and see the room almost silent. Every chair and couch is full of dating couples, all of whom are sitting at least 6 inches apart, all of whom are staring deeply into each other's eyes. I feel like I'm traumatized.
For how long?
Hours, dude. Hours.
Oh, no. That's so weird. That's so gross. That's worse than what I thought it was going to be.
Really?
Yes.
They're just sitting there looking at each other.
No, but just sitting there staring deeply into each other. Oh, no.
So, yeah, you will literally see people sitting, facing each other, close but not touching. They're staring into each other's eyes with their faces as close as they can get, without getting yelled at for almost touching. And they're staring in each other's eyes like, I like you. I like you too. I like you. I like you too. And that's what you hear walking through the room.
Stop it.
Okay, I'll stop.
How are they okay? How is that okay? But giving a isn't.
Yeah, I mean that should be clear. You're not touching. You're just grossing out the immediate
that's so much
population.
worse than anything. That's the worst.
It's weird for me to hear you have such a reaction to it because that was normal life for me.
No, that's so bad.
That's
the worst thing that I've ever heard.
Really? Oh my goodness.
Oh.
I am now adding to my deep dive internet to-do list. I'm going to try to find you footage from the dating lobby.
I'm not sure I want that.
Well, so just for the record, at Hyles Anderson, it's usually called iBabies or making iBabies. Other Christian colleges are more of a fan of the optical intercourse term.
Optical intercourse.
But yeah, that's those are your options, and that's how you date.
That sounds like something else, and the thing that it sounds like, I feel like is...
That is true.
Yeah.
That it does sound like something pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're a little more scared of
no, man. Oh, that's nasty. You guys are freaky.
Well, when we get 10,000 subscribers, we will fly you to Hammond, Indiana, and make you walk through the drill pool with a GoPro.
They're not going to let me on that campus. Let's be real.
Oh, sure they will. I know how to get on campus.
They're going to take one look at me and be like, that, like, he does not belong here.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just make you watch 10 seconds of a video.
Like we talked about in this episode, I'm not going to tell anybody that random hookups are right for them. And I'm not going to tell anybody that they need to wait for marriage, even wait until they're in like a committed relationship, right? Like that's not what we want to do here. So like if you decide that you want your first kiss to be on your wedding day, we fully support you and your decision and your right to make that decision for yourself, because bodily autonomy is a human right. And when somebody else makes that choice for you, that's them taking away your freedom and taking away your autonomy. And every person has a right to choose what they want to do and with whom and when, of course, assuming that all parties are consenting and willing. And never mind sex, just like the slightest bit of physical contact is like punishable through some draconian crime. That's an infringement on your bodily autonomy, right? In reference to what we spoke about in the first episode with the bite model, like exercising control over somebody's romantic life is an example of exercising both like behavior control and thought control and emotion control. So I know that like we're joking here about how ridiculous a lot of this stuff is on the podcast, because let's be real, this optical intercourse or iBabies or whatever is pretty ridiculous and super gross. But the reality is that this stuff is far more insidious than just strict rules and trying to find like little loopholes in the rules that'll get you like a little touch here and there.
Yeah, I feel like that's what we're always saying is if you feel like God is speaking to you and this is what God wants you to personally do, go for it. If you've just made a decision on your own outside of religious reasons that you want to live your life a certain way, go for it. You're great. That's fine.
That's absolutely your right to do that, and nobody can tell you that you can't or that you shouldn't.
It is, yeah, but it is also equally not okay for someone else to take control over your behavior to this kind of level.
No, it's just wrong.
It's just wrong, but at least it's funny.
I'm glad you experienced it and not me. I know that's a horrible thing to say, but I'm glad that wasn't me. I wouldn't have been able to handle it.
Well, I mean, you may want to cut this out and you may not, but why do you think that God / the universe / karma, like why do you think that I'm the one who experienced that? Like, don't you think that somewhere either God or whatever, or my own spirit is watching out for me? And I was able to get through it. I was able to not only survive, but get out and then find a way to tell my story and hopefully be helpful to other people.
That's quite uplifting for you to say,
I think I've just learned to live with it. I wasn't always like this. I was mad. I was hurt. I was destroyed getting out of the IFB. But now I feel like, you can say it's God, you can say it's karma or the universe, you can say that it's the strength of my own spirit, but whatever it was, I'm here, I'm okay, I can talk about it and I can joke about it. And So it turned out okay that I was the one. I'm glad too that I'm the one who experienced it, not you.
Yeah, I would not have been able to handle it.
And I was. And now here we are laughing about it.
And on that note, I think that it's a good time to transition to this episode's homework section.
Hey, Gavriel here. If you enjoy the Leaving Eden podcast, head over to our Facebook group, Eden Exodus, where you can talk to other fans, ask us questions, and share memes. That's facebook.com/Eden Exodus. You can join our Patreon at patreon.com/Leaving Eden Podcast, and you'll get access to extended and uncensored episodes. You can also support our show by recommending it to your family and your friends. The Leaving Eden Podcast is a fully independent podcast, and we really appreciate your support. And now, back to the show.
And on that note, I think that it's a good time to transition to this episode's homework section, in which I assign Sadie a piece of pop culture to consume, usually something iconic or ubiquitous that she would have missed out on growing up in a cult for 22 years of her life. And this week, I picked a big one. This episode, I had Sadie watch the classic 2001 Dreamworks animated comedy Shrek. And I think that last episode we brought up the cultural impact of this movie, at least for me. But like for kids my age, it was huge. It had like the perfect blend of potty humor, like accessible cultural references, and really like heartfelt and wholesome messaging.
So I totally believed you when you told me about like the cultural impact of Shrek. But as soon as I started watching it today, which is when I planned and prepared to watch this movie, I immediately experienced that for myself. So you know that my husband is currently working from home because of coronavirus. So he would come out of the office to get coffee or whatever, and he noticed what I was watching, and he immediately started quoting the movie back to me.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's quoting it along with the movie on the screen, and he goes back in the office and does more work, and he comes back out 20 minutes later, and he's like, you know what else has layers? Parfaits have layers. You ever met somebody who didn't like parfaits? And he's just animatedly quoting it back to me. And he wasn't a small child either. Like when this movie came out, he's a bit older than us. He would have been 14 in 2001.
I was like 7 or 8 when this movie came out. I remember I went to go see it in the theaters. It was so funny. I laughed so hard. And I didn't even get half the jokes, right? Because I was a kid, I didn't understand half of the references that they were making to stuff, but it was still funny. So
here's a question. Do you think that I thought I saw some Princess Bride references in there. Do you think there were?
Oh, I'm sure. There's no way that there weren't Princess Bride references.
Like Lord Farquaad looks a lot like Prince Humperdinck in The Princess Bride. And then also Fiona uses almost the same line asking the priest to like hurry up the wedding.
Yeah, no, that was totally a reference to that. And I actually just watched the movie again yesterday to catch up on it. The way that they were done was really smart because like a lot of the cultural references are heavily fairy tale based. So it's accessible and appropriate for children.
But also what was disturbing was the gingerbread man. They're waterboarding the gingerbread man.
But yeah, Lord Farquaad is like, he's a bad guy. Like when we're first introduced to him, you know, he's like torturing the gingerbread man.
I know. I was almost shocked by that. I was, oh my goodness, that's really sad.
Yeah, he's like, eat me. Like, don't.
Yeah.
Or,
and I was
the buttons, not the gumdrop buttons.
So that is one of the other lines that Jonathan quoted to me as well.
Yeah.
I was surprised by how dark, like there was definitely some dark stuff in there.
Did you see when they were showing Lord Farquaad in that scene when he was sitting in his bed and like rewinding the mirror back and forth to show me the princess, show me the princess. They had the bear rug that had the mama bear like skinned and made into a rug on his floor. Yeah. That was
like, there are a lot of like little dark details, and
I did not notice that as a kid, but like now I watch it, I'm like, whoa, I
kind of feel like I might watch it again tonight while it's still rented.
I highly recommend it. It's so, there's so many details.
Did you notice though, like why this is such a perfect homework for this episode? Like, did you catch what I caught?
What are you referring to specifically?
Yeah, so right after Shrek rescues Fiona from the dragon, they finally get outside, and she's trying to get him to take off your helmet. I want to see who just rescued me.
Yeah.
Okay, so he says, "No, I'm not your type," and she comes back, "Of course you are. You're my rescuer," and that goes exactly back to what I was saying about the IFB teaching that women are searching for security. Because she's been told that the guy who rescues her is the guy she's supposed to be in love with. So she just assumes that, of course you're my type. Of course, you're my rescuer. That's the person I'm supposed to fall in love with.
But that was also to do with that she had the curse on her and the...
Right. I just felt like her naivety and her assumption that everything was going to go exactly the way that she had always been told or always planned that it was going to go. That was echoey of being a young person in the IFB to me.
I like this movie. They still had, because there was all sorts of jokes that kids would get, but they also put those jokes in for the parents. They had the jokes about, oh, Lord Farquaad, maybe he's compensating for something.
Yes. Oh, I can't remember what the quote was. Never mind.
Men of Farquaad's caliber are in short supply.
Men of his stature are in short supply. But no, I'm really glad I watched that. And I think every time I go to do homework, I'm like, okay, gotta do the homework. And then I watch it and I love it. So you must have a handle on what I'm really gonna love.
It's all on iconic stuff, basically stuff that's universally acclaimed. Well, I want to talk about some of the character development that was in this movie because it was pretty big. It was pretty huge. Shrek changes pretty drastically as a character. It has to make you wonder. At the beginning of the movie, we get the sense Shrek is just a deeply persecuted person for no other reason than him being big and green. So what does that sort of persecution do to a person?
Yeah, and it made him, I think he had just given up.
Yeah, he'd totally given up.
He had given up on the idea of oh, this is just how it is. This is how everybody feels about me. There's no reason for me to try to change it. It's a lost cause. It's better for me to just be by myself where nobody can hurt me. And
it's not even about oh, I'd given up on romance. He'd given up on the idea of having friends. Because what did it take for Shrek to befriend Donkey?
Yeah, several instances of life-saving and grand quest having.
Yeah, and at the beginning, basically you tried to scare Donkey away, and Donkey's like, you need some Tic Tacs. Your breath stinks. I'm not afraid of you. I want to hang out with you. You seem all right. And Shrek's like, really? What's wrong with you? That was that was his reaction.
Right, because the assumption is that everybody hates him and everyone is scared of him.
Yeah, but not this weird talking donkey that's played by Eddie Murphy. And so, it just goes to show, choose people who choose you and you'll be successful and you'll be happy. But what does it take to open up somebody's heart after they've been closed off for so long?
I think, just in my experience, it takes a change of heart, because a change of mind is often not enough to really get somebody's actions to change. Just something academic or something that, just logical isn't usually, or I don't think it's usually enough to affect a change that big in somebody. I think it's a change of heart, which is a really different thing. And it was a really sweet thing to see in a kid's movie portrayed really nicely, I thought.
Right, because, it just basically goes to show everyone is deserving of love. And beauty is more than skin deep, even if you're a princess or if you're an ogre or if you're a talking donkey or if you're a dragon.
Yeah, and I think I kind of assumed that the beauty is more than skin deep thing was going to be played in this movie. I kind of assumed off the top, oh, this is probably where they're going with this.
That's a basic theme that you can get in a lot of kids' movies, but it's in this movie did it better than most movies, I think.
Yeah, the one part that really got to me, though, so it's the day that was supposed to be Fiona and Lord Farquaad's wedding, and the sun has gone down, so she changed into an ogre, freaked everybody out. He got eaten by the dragon. And she and Shrek finally kiss, and it's supposed to be breaking the curse. right? Like once you have true love's kiss, the curse is going to break. And you get this image of all these sparklies around Fiona. She's lifted up off the floor, and there's like a magical, it looks like it's going to be like a transformation sequence.
Yeah, like in Beauty and the Beast.
She's like put back down on the floor, and what went through my mind is, oh no, it changed her back into the princess. That's just a negative. I really thought they were going to turn her back into the beautiful human princess, and I was so disappointed for a minute, and then they proved me wrong, and it was so much better that way.
I have to say though, my favorite couple out of this movie was Donkey and Dragon.
Okay, they were cute. The first interaction that they had, I thought Donkey was just flirting with the dragon to like save their lives.
Right. Dragon has needs, you know. How would you feel to be like, okay, well, you got to be locked up in this tower guarding this princess? Like, you can't go out there and find like a handsome man dragon or another lady dragon if that's the way you swing.
If that's your deal.
You know?
Right. Well, I mean, I thought it was really sweet that they had that come back. And I thought the whole relationship between the two of them was just portrayed so cute. Oh yeah, it was sweet. And the lady dragon's lipstick, I loved that. Yeah. I love that little dragon. Yeah, I thought that little touch was just extra adorable.
I've seen this movie like probably hundreds of times.
And now I've seen it once.
Yeah, I'd highly recommend Shrek 2. Shrek 2 was quite good as well.
Okay. Well, speaking of homework, I sent you what I can only refer to as a dossier last week.
Oh my god, I started through it. I've read a couple of articles, and I started one of the docs.
Okay, my best guess is that's about 10 hours worth of material. Does that sound right to you?
10 hours. Yeah, that sounds about right. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to talk about this because we're going to do a 5-episode series, right?
Yes.
That's going to really go into a lot of the dirty details about the IFB. Not just like, oh, well, this is how they make you dress and this is their rules for dating. Like, this is their history. This is what crimes the people who were in charge committed. This is the abuses that they committed.
Yeah, this is specific things that happened. I think the earliest things we're going to talk about are within 5 or 8 years of when I was born. And then the most recent thing we're going to talk about is things that happened in 2013 and things that are ongoing. So we're going to talk about a lot of the biggest scandals in recent history.
And things that you continually have a part of now.
Right. Things that I either lived through and remember, or things that happened shortly before I was born that it absolutely had a profound influence on the way I was raised. Things that I heard about as a little child. So this is like the framework of my life when it comes to fundy history and fundy scandals. This is like the framework, because these things, the ones that I didn't live through myself in a very personal way, these things shaped the way that the IFB functioned when I was born into it.
Right. Yeah. And so like it involves like murder, mind control, extramarital affairs, all this dirty, dirty stuff.
3 Ways with Jesus.
3 Ways with Jesus. Yeah. So like the college that you went to was called Hyles Anderson College, and that was named for this man, Jack Hyles.
Yes, Jack. He was the pastor of First Baptist Church of Hammond.
And so our episode next week is going to be heavily focused on Jack Hyles.
Yeah, so we're gonna start by talking about Jack Hyles, and then we're gonna move on through a couple of related people to lay out this framework, and we're gonna call it the First Family of Fundamentalism series.
We're really excited to do this because this is a huge undertaking.
Yeah, it's been a lot of research, and I think we didn't want to do it until we felt like we had a decent handle on everything that needed to be said and being as accurate with details as we can.
Yeah.
Because, like we said like we say at the beginning, if somebody's just a regular person, we've changed their names because we don't want to invade anybody's privacy on this podcast. Again, these are some episodes where we're going to be using real names of people who are public figures. These are we're going to be telling real stories about real people, and we want to be as accurate as we possibly can.
Yeah, and so that's why we've got to do all this research, and that's why we're stretching it out into 5 episodes, because glossing over anything would just be a bad decision. It would not be doing justice to the actual seriousness of what's happened here.
Yeah, so next week I think we'll be getting a start on that.
This has been the Leaving Eden podcast. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Facebook and Instagram are Leaving Eden Podcast, and Twitter is at Leaving Eden Pod. I'm Gavriel Hacohen. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at GAVRIELHACOHEN.
I'm Sadie Carpenter. You can find me on Instagram at Sadie Carpenter Music or on Twitter at Hell Yes Sadie. If you do have any specific questions, funny or serious, that you want to ask me, ask us, ask about different things that I've experienced, you can send us an email. What's that email address?
That is leavingedenpods@gmail.com.
Yeah, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, so anyway, until next time, hope to hear you guys soon. And this has been the Leaving Eden podcast. Thank you and have a nice day.